Hello, Inman Connect. My name is Leslie Appleton-Young. I'm the Chief Economist with the California Association of Realtors, and I am also a co-founder of Women Up. And I am delighted to be here to share some of the research that we've been doing over the last 2.5 months or so, as we have been attempting to get a handle on what is happening, because our typical measures of the market and consumer behavior and so on have been much more slow moving. And it seems like the last few months or so, every day there's new news and things are out of date almost immediately. So we've been doing a lot of interesting research. There is no doubt that no one knows exactly what the future brings. In fact, we're all going to be part of creating it, but I'm happy to be able to share what we've been doing, and I hope you are able to get a few tidbits out of it. So let me start by just saying I think the last 10 or 12 weeks have really pushed us all through the stages of grief, and I won't speak for everyone, but I sense more and more that we are in a period of acceptance, and that's a very positive thing, because that means we are in a position to act, to take action. And you certainly see that in the market over the last couple of weeks as the shelter-in-place orders have been gradually lifted. A lot of differences across the country in this. And speaking of that, one of the questions that we've been asking our members is how they feel about how all that is going. Are they concerned that we are taking too long to open up, or we're moving too quickly, or do you just not know? And I present this data, which essentially shows it's about a third, that we are not an industry with a consensus on what is happening with the virus and how quickly we should get back to opening things up. And just as a way of saying, I think we need to respect each other and recognize that there are different viewpoints coming into this and different conclusions going out of it, and just kind of try to sit with that a little bit. I'll also say that I think what's happened to our market and the economy has been certainly nothing I've ever experienced. It's been, the pause button has been hit, and the outcome of all of this is dependent on how long the pause button is hit. And right now there seems to be a general understanding that we are coming back gradually, but we're moving forward. And if we don't get a second wave in the fall, we will be seeing some pretty good growth numbers in the fourth quarter and into 2021. And if we do, it's going to take a lot longer. So again, a tremendous amount of uncertainty. So we've been looking at behavioral changes. We've been looking at how people are responding to the market. And I want to just briefly share with you what the various surveys have been telling us. And I'm going to start with agents. This is a weekly survey that we have been doing now for 12 weeks, and you can see there on the left hand, on the right hand side there, how long. And I think my takeaway from just the whole data set is that the market really reached its lowest ebb in the middle of April. And since that time, things have been improving a little bit by fits and starts. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So one of the questions we ask our members is, do you have a client that's been kind of hesitant to buy, holding back? And in our last week, this is the last week in May, 75% said yes, but in mid-April it was 91%. So an improvement from a very low bottom, if you will. How about withdrawing an offer? 32% said, yeah, that's, a third. I've had a buyer withdraw an offer, but in mid-April that was 48%. How about a seller holding back? 68% of the members said, I've had that, but in mid-April it was 81%. So you can see how this is going, right, in terms of a gradual movement away and off the bottom. 46% said that they had a seller remove their home from the market, and that was upwards of 80% in the first couple of weeks there. It's now 46% versus 57% was the high in mid-April. A quarter said transaction fell out of escrow, 31% in mid-April. So a lot of consistency in terms of that data set, in terms of buyers and sellers just being like, what is going on? I don't know. I want to reassess. I want to pull back from the market and see what happens. Now, a lot of changes in behavior, and one of the things everyone's asking is, but how can you possibly buy and sell property without actually seeing it? So one of the questions we asked was, have you had a buyer put a contract on a home without actually seeing it? And in the last week, 13% of the members said yes, they have had that. So don't ever say never about anything. We also have noticed a big increase in vacant listings. Some of the MLSs have upwards of half of the listings vacant, and we're finding that is often to facilitate showing. So 56% in the last week said yes, vacant, and 42% of those said we did it to facilitate showing. And 3/4 of them said, I have been showing vacant property since the stay-at-home orders took place. So a lot of incentive, and I wonder how much that's going to stay with us when we get through that, because it just kind of makes it easier for everybody. What about prices? This is a question I get all the time. What is going to happen to prices? So this is us asking the agent in the field, are your buyers expecting lower prices? Well, in the very beginning, when we started asking this question in mid-April, 89, 90% of you said yes. The latest week, it was 77%, which is still a very, very high number, but not as high as it was. And my guess is you've got buyers getting into the market and going, oh, this is a lot more competitive than I thought it was going to be. 22% said, I have had a buyer attempt to renegotiate the purchase price. That's down from when we first started asking. Again, this is in the middle of April, which I'm identifying as kind of the rock bottom. So, but still some pressure there from buyers expecting prices to be lower. On the other hand, we asked about sellers reducing the list price. And the last couple weeks, it's been around 29, 30%. That's kind of what it normally is. We aren't seeing a response on the sell side yet. I think we will see more of that as we go forward, but initially sellers were just not too interested in doing any kind of discounting. So I mentioned that the shelter-in-place orders have been started to loosen up. So one of the questions we asked was, how comfortable are you showing property? And it looks like, and again, very understandable, the industry is fairly comfortable. The mean was about 3.8 on a scale of 1 to 5, comfortable doing that. How quickly will you return? 51% said as soon as those orders are relaxed. And again, they are relaxing with very specific requirements of how you are to comport yourself, prepare the property, clean the property in between showings, and so on and so forth. But 51% immediately, and 1% are outliers, not until there is a vaccine. So to my earlier point about how different the attitudes and opinions are within our industry. So kind of the takeaways are initially, and by this I look at the beginning of March to middle of March to the middle of April, buyers and sellers were a little, Bambi in the headlights. We're not sure what's happening. We want to get out of it. I don't know what my financial situation is going to be. I'm just going to postpone things and put things on hold. When we dug a little deeper, we found that typically when an escrow was canceled, if it wasn't uncertainty, it had to do with finances, with people losing their jobs, losing their down payment. We still find, as usual, that when there's a delay, it has to do with financing. I think my biggest takeaway from this survey every week is looking at how adaptable the agents have been. You've had just a huge shift in terms of people doing virtual tours and e-signing and all of the things that are really been forced by the current environment. Okay, let's look at kind of just brokers for a minute, running a business. And we wanted to know, like, how are you feeling about the market? And they're fairly concerned, understandably so. That pause button was hit. And then we asked them, like, how long do you think this is going to go on? How long do you think the recovery is going to take? And about 2/3 of them think it's going to take 3 months or longer. And that, I think, is a reasonable projection. We asked about at year end, how long do you think your business will be off? And while the ranges were big, the average was about 28%, which I think is a certainly reasonable in the ballpark number. We also asked about the pool of agents. This is a question I'm frequently getting about membership. How will we see increases because there's so many more unemployed, or will we see drops because of the fall in transactions? So when we asked the brokers, about 22% expected a 10% or more drop in their agents, but 52% didn't think there would be any change in their agent population. So I think that's tied to sort of a quick recovery, getting back to business. So kind of more on the optimistic side. Here is a breakout by firm size, and this is one of the things that's very helpful when you're looking at the industry. The larger firms and the mom and pops typically behave very, very differently. So the smaller brokers are much more optimistic about retaining their agents, and it may be because it literally is mom and pop, whereas the larger companies with 50 or more agents, over half of them think between a 1% and a 10% drop. So this is definitely feeding into kind of the planning for the rest of this year and 2021. How confident will you be, are you, that you will be in business after the end of this year? And I'm happy to report that 57% are extremely confident and 25% very confident, but I do think you're going to see a loss of some of the firms that are in a weaker position. And again, this is nothing new. This is just an acceleration of an existing trend. As it said in the beginning, crises accelerate, and that's, I think, what you're seeing play out in many aspects of the consumer and realtor behavior. Here's just another breakout, and the bigger companies are more confident that they will be around. What about changing how we're doing the business? Now, we asked how comfortable are your agents doing virtual transactions, and 44% said very or extremely comfortable. And my take here is that's not good enough. We are going to see much more virtual in the transaction playing out as we continue to go forward this year and into the future. So it's very, very important that all relevant players take the lead in training and education. I think it's absolutely critical, or people are going to be left behind. And the larger brokers are more comfortable with seeing their agents as more comfortable with virtual transactions. They typically have a much deeper commitment to, or at least existing libraries of training and so on, as opposed to maybe some of the smaller niche mom and pop. So I don't want to overgeneralize here, just sharing the information with you. It looks like Zoom is definitely our new platform, and 2/3 of the brokers are using it regularly to connect with their agents, and over half are using it regularly to communicate with their clients. So on both kind of communication channels, there's just a lot more video conferencing going on. And the larger the firm, the more effective they think that communication is. So in a smaller firm, it's you and your spouse. There's a lot of intense face-to-face conversation going on even now, but there's certainly a scale element here. And for larger companies, they're finding that video conferencing really increases engagement, intimacy, and connection between team players. And then we asked about, will you continue this in the future? And really, regardless of size, there's definitely a commitment to making this part of what we do. New training, everybody kind of seems to recognize that we definitely need kind of the new training. So I think we're going to see more of that going forward. Now, what about kind of the shape and structure of the industry? And again, an acceleration of existing trends. What about office consolidations? 36% of the respondents said yes, thinking about that, but much more likely in the larger firms, the firms with 50 or more agents. You're in an environment right now where razor thin margins are really razor thin, if they're positive at all. So cutting costs and kind of leveraging the efficiency of virtual communication is really where it's at. It's an obvious change, and clearly the kind of attack on bricks and mortar has been going on going along for a long time, right? This is, again, is just an acceleration. We also asked if you're going to consider reducing your footprint. 39% said yes, but when we break it out by firm size, 63% of the larger offices or larger brokerages will be looking at not renewing at least some of their leases when that happens. So again, something that's been happening, we're just going to see more of it. So one of the most interesting things about the research, and it's the most time consuming, is looking at the verbatims, looking at the comments that people submit. And what you hear here is just out with the old and in with the new. Not a big surprise, but I'm looking at my expenses in a different way, and I'm getting rid of the phones on the desk, and I'm getting rid of the shared computers, and I'm really embracing the way things are done now. You also see a recognition that I need to train my agents. I need a virtual transaction platform. I need to be on top of all of my numbers, and I need to have gloves, hand sanitizers, whatever is required by your local jurisdiction. I need to have all that. Those are now really tools of the trade, and probably will be for some time to come. We also asked just what are your thoughts about the future of the industry? And here we have someone thought, I think we're going to see a reduction in the agent population by up to a third. Smaller footprints, more virtual marketing. I would love to see the simplification of the home buying and selling process. Wouldn't that be, something we've been talking about in these rooms for many, many years. And this is the one that really I thought was so beautiful, because we asked, what have you learned coming out of this or looking back on what we've been through? And this comment was, take nothing for granted, how important communication plays into client relationships and retention. Let clients know they are cared about no matter the circumstances, and that we are here for them no matter what happens. Remain flexible and open to change. There's beauty in everything, and there will be good that comes out of the last 30 days of the world being on pause. And I will tell you, we talk about real estate being a relationship business, and yet when you survey consumers, one of their ongoing complaints for years, decades, is, I never heard from my agent again. So what an opportunity this is to connect with clients and just say, how are you doing? How are things going? And then finally, just a few words on consumers. We did a very large consumer survey. Every month we ask consumers, is it a good time to sell and is it a good time to buy? And to the strength of the buy side, that came up in May. And on the sell side, we had a huge drop between March and April, but it's starting to come back again as well. So I think that's a really important message to get out, that people are interested in viewing the market. We also did a survey of potential buyers and sellers that was in the field in the beginning of April, and I just wanted to share some of what they said about technology and about virtual transactions, because certainly that's one of the concerns. How are my clients going to feel about doing this? And almost 60% said they were extremely or very comfortable with signing documents electronically. So you're always going to have people that don't, but I think the consumers may be ahead of the industry on this one. How comfortable would you be signing home sale documents? Over two-thirds very comfortable. For buyers, 70% are very comfortable touring a home virtually. So there'll be a lot more kind of weaning through the pool of the houses they're interested in with that. And two-thirds very comfortable touring virtually as well. So those are, I think, some of the things that we are going to see stick as we go through this. I think the key right now is to not lose sight of, what do I need to do today to take advantage of and be prepared for the opportunities in the market going forward. You may have seen this on Twitter, where people were asked to send in a picture of their home office, and it's so funny and sad, but a lot of people were not prepared for the work at home world, and it's not really working out very well for them. So that certainly is a major change. There are not everyone is able to do that, but there are companies that are saying we are never going to open to the same scale that we have been in the past. So I think the work from home, work from anywhere is just a huge change that's going to mean people demanding different types of housing and demanding them in different locations, right? And really rethinking lifestyle and life choices. More saving and less spending. We've talked about the experiential economy for a long time. I think this is another acceleration of that. Definitely online retailing, less travel, maybe far away and closer to home because people feel safe. And just a reinvention of the house. This isn't where you leave in the morning and go to work, come home at the evening, have dinner, go to sleep, and repeat. This is where I actually live. It's where I work. It's my office. It's my gym. It's my school. It's a restaurant. It's multi-generational. So just a relook for all of us as what we need, what we want, what we can aspire to in our housing, with the caveat that safety and health are really predominant. So I'll close with my predictions. I think residential real estate is one of the big winners coming out of this, not just pent-up demand and supply, making, with incredibly low mortgage rates, but a new type of demand with new space requirements in the home and where the home is located. One way to think of where we are right now is it's January all over again, right? What happens in January? Buyers are ready to go and sellers are still kind of figuring out what they need to do to get their house listed. So agents are kind of bridging those two sides, just like they always do. And I just want to close with a plea for utilizing any vacant commercial and retail space to increase housing supply, which is an issue in many, many parts of the country. There are going to be empty malls that can be turned into villages where you can find affordable housing, senior housing, homeless housing. There's a lot of opportunity. There'll be plenty of parking, and that kind of reuse is just absolutely critical. So remember who your competition is. It's always just you yesterday, and anyone that's outworking you. So that's something you have really complete control over. So those are just a few highlights of the industry changes and consumer changes that we've been seeing in the market. These slides will be posted on the Woman Up blog. I also want to invite all of you to attend Friday, 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We do a Talk It Out session with wonderful interviews, and I do kind of a segment on the market, and we'd be delighted to have you there. So that's Woman Up with an A and a exclamation point at the end. So have a great Inman Now, and look forward to seeing many of you. Thank you.